Close your eyes for a moment. Allow your mind to drift away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. Feel the familiar edges of your identity, your name, your occupation, your history, beginning to dissolve. Sense your attachments slipping off one by one, until you're left with a silent awareness. In that place of perfect stillness, ask yourself, who am I? This single question captures the essence of Sri Ramana Maharshi's teachings. Across decades of gentle presence and simple guidance, he devoted his life to helping people look beyond thought, beyond memory, beyond all the layers of self-image, into the silent core of being that underlies everything. To truly appreciate this journey, let us begin in a quiet corner of India's Tamil Nadu in the late 19th century. Imagine dusty village roads lined with tall coconut palms, the midday sun shimmering off earthen walls, and children running across open fields. In 1879, in one such village, a boy named Venkataraman Iyer was born. His family was not particularly mystical, and his early life gave little hint of spiritual destiny. He was a bright student, excelled in local sports, and was more preoccupied with games than with religious ritual. On the surface, he seemed like any other lively child growing up in southern India. Yet, destiny often moves in quiet, subtle ways. When Venkataraman was 16, something happened that would forever change the course of his life. One perfectly ordinary day, he was struck by an overwhelming fear of death. It wasn't a mere morbid thought flitting across the mind. It was an all-consuming feeling that seemed to overtake his entire being. Most of us, confronted with our mortality in such a stark manner, would recoil, seek comforting explanations, or distract ourselves. But Venkataraman did the unthinkable. He surrendered to the fear and decided to face it head-on. He lay down as though he were already a corpse. In that still posture, he asked, "What dies when the body dies? And if the body is truly dead, what remains?" In a matter of moments, he mentally stripped away every attribute he normally associated with himself. His name, his face, his memories, his relationships. And in that process, he discovered something startling, a pure, undying consciousness that shone behind all appearances. The panic of death melted into a profound sense of timeless existence. This luminous realization did not fade when he stood up. It stayed with him, as vivid as the midday sun. Not long after this life-altering experience, Venkataraman felt an unshakable inner call drawing him toward the sacred mountain of Arunachala. Without informing his family, he quietly left home, spending what little money he had on a train ticket to Tiruvannamalai. Arriving at the foot of the towering mountain, he slipped into a profound silence. The next phase of his life began. The boy who once wrestled and ran around with friends now sat in deep meditation, often in secluded caves, letting the world unfold around him while he remained anchored in the stillness he had discovered within. People in the area took notice. They found this young ascetic, soon to be known as Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, wrapped in an aura of silent peace. Word spread through neighboring villages and towns, reaching scholars, religious devotees, and the curious alike. Many of them made the trek to see the silent sage in the caves of Arunachala, seeking answers, or simply longing to soak up the palpable stillness that radiated from him. But what exactly did this sage teach? Remarkably, his core guidance could be condensed into a single question: who am I? This was not a clever puzzle to be solved in a debate hall, nor was it a riddle that demanded an elaborate scriptural response. To Ramana Maharshi, it was the highest form of meditation, a living inquiry that cuts straight to the root of our existence. Rather than piling new beliefs upon an already cluttered mind, he urged people to remove every false identification. Whenever a thought popped up, "I am sad, I am happy, I want this, I dislike that," He advised turning inward and asking, "To whom does this thought arise? Who is the one experiencing this emotion?" In that quiet turning inward, the seeker begins to unravel the layers of ego. We discover that much of what we call I is borrowed from transient states, the body that changes by the day, the mind that races and wanders, the emotions that shift from joy to sorrow in the blink of an eye. Peeling those layers away reveals an awareness that persists through every fluctuation, a steady light behind the theatre of our experiences. Ramana called this the self, not a personal self shaped by preferences and memories, but the ground of pure being that underlies everything. One question that often arises is, isn't this basically Advaita Vedanta, the ancient non-dualistic philosophy that proclaims that the individual soul, jiva, is one with Brahman, absolute reality? Indeed, Ramana's teaching resonates with classical Advaitic doctrine. But whereas many teachers lecture with scripture, commentary, or complex metaphysics, Ramana Maharshi's method was disarmingly simple. He rarely gave formal talks. Instead, he often conveyed insight through a radiant silence or through the direct practice of self-inquiry. Those who approached him with academic curiosity might leave unsatisfied. He wasn't interested in endless debate or intellectual speculation. Yet, countless seekers found that by adopting his method and resting in his presence, they experience a direct shift in their consciousness, a taste of the very essence that Advaita Vedanta describes, but seldom can fully articulate in words. Ramana also spoke occasionally about the heart center, not the physical heart, but a subtle spiritual center located on the right side of the chest. He taught that every thought, every concept of I, arises and eventually subsides into this heart center which symbolizes the true self. By gently guiding our awareness back to its source, we discover a constant, unchanging presence, the I am, that can never be taken away. This abiding in the heart, he insisted, is the ultimate refuge, beyond the turbulence of mental activity. As the years went on, the quiet sage, who had once meditated alone in caves, drew more and more visitors. Pilgrims from all over India, and later from around the world, came to experience the calm that seemed to surround him. A small community formed near the mountain's base, eventually growing into what's now known as Ramanasramam. It wasn't grand or lavish. It remained, like Ramana himself, humble and serene, a cluster of buildings, a simple hall where he would sit, a kitchen that served food for devotees, and spaces for meditation and reflection. The life at Ramanasramam followed a gentle rhythm. Ramana would sometimes help with cooking, assist with chores, and welcome visitors at all hours. When approached with questions, he responded sparingly, often returning the questioner to self-inquiry. Yet just being in his presence was itself a teaching. Seekers reported how their minds would unexplainably grow quiet in his vicinity, how anxieties would dissolve without a word being spoken. Ramana argued that silence, capital S, was often more potent than spoken words. In one famous story, a scholar came to him brimming with questions from the Vedas and Upanishads, only to face Ramana's silent gaze. Growing impatient, the scholar complained, "Why won't you answer me?" Ramana replied, "I am answering you in silence, you are not listening." For those steeped in mental chatter or scholarly debate, this approach could be perplexing. But for the open-hearted, it was a doorway into direct realization. In modern times, we are bombarded by texts, tweets, and countless forms of media vying for attention. Ramana's simplicity, his unyielding emphasis on the stillness within, feels like a breath of fresh air. It reminds us that real wisdom doesn't necessarily arrive through the accumulation of knowledge, but rather through the recognition of our timeless nature. Now, you might wonder, how does this help us in the chaos of everyday life? After all, we aren't all ascetics who can retreat to caves or ashrams. Ramana Maharshi was clear on this. He did not ask people to abandon their responsibilities. He told devotees to remain where they were, leading their ordinary lives, but to carry the question, "Who am I?" into every corner of their day. Feeling stressed or anxious? Ask yourself, who is feeling this? Experiencing anger? Inquire, to whom does this anger arise? Instead of analysing or suppressing our feelings, we use the feeling itself as a stepping stone back to the source. This practice, known in Sanskrit as Atmavikara, self-inquiry, can be woven into any routine, at work, in relationships, even during mundane tasks. Each moment of self-inquiry is like a mini meditation, a gentle pivot inward, reminding us that every fleeting emotion or thought arises within the deeper context of the self. Over time, that deeper context becomes more and more apparent, and the sense of a separate, struggling ego less and less compelling. Life continues to flow. There are still joys, sorrows, triumphs and failures, but there is a newfound refuge in the unchanging presence that observes it all. Ramana's influence has grown exponentially since his passing in 1950. He left his body on April 14th of that year, surrounded by devotees who were devastated at the thought of losing their beloved master. Even in his final days, he refused special medical treatment, maintaining that the body comes and goes, while the self remains untouched. Indeed, to those who still visit Arunachala, where Ramanasramam stands in quiet homage, his presence feels alive in the meditative atmosphere, the hushed halls, and the solemn prayers chanted at sunrise. His recorded words found in works like Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, Who Am I?, and 40 Verses on Reality continue to guide seekers across the globe. Many teachers in the West, whether from Buddhist, Christian, or secular mindfulness backgrounds, have integrated Ramana's style of inquiry into their own teachings. There is a universality in his approach. One need not believe in a particular God or a certain scripture to ask, "Who am I?" One need only be curious enough to look beyond the surface of experience. Perhaps most profound is the realization that Sri Ramana Maharshi's greatest teaching might not be any set of words at all, but rather the living example of a person who fully embodied the truth of non-duality. His quiet compassion, his unwavering humility, and his simple lifestyle speak volumes about the possibility of resting in a state of inner freedom, no matter the external circumstances. So, as we come to the end of our exploration, let's return to the beginning. Close your eyes for a moment. In your imagination, step away from the clamor of your daily concerns. Let the swirl of thoughts and perceptions settle like dust in the sunlight. Then ask softly but insistently, "Who am I?" Do not be satisfied with the surface answers, your name, your job, your likes, your dislikes. Instead, feel into the silent awareness that remains when all labels fall away. This is the invitation left by Sri Ramana Maharshi, a timeless pointer to the essence that remains after every transient aspect of existence is relinquished. In the willingness to look within, we discover that behind every story of me lies a boundless consciousness. This consciousness, unchanging and unconditioned, is ultimately who we are. Thank you for joining Analects of Wisdom on this journey through the life and teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. May his question, "Who am I?" resonate in your being, gently guiding you home to the vastness of your own heart. And in that space of stillness and clarity, may you find the peace that no words can truly describe, the peace that underlies every moment of our existence.